So I'm going to show you how to sew this really different kind of inseam pocket. So I have my pocket pieces here, and I have overlocked or serged round 3 sides. So the side that I have left unfinished is actually the bottom edge. So you can tell it's the bottom edge because the notches along the sides, which you now can't see that well because I have finished them, there's a notch about 2 inches from the top, and then there's a notch another 6 or so inches down from that. And so there's a large unnotched edge here, so that shows you that this edge is the bottom. The sides that have kind of equidistant notches in them, like 3 equidistant notches, those are the top and the bottom. So I finished these 3 sides, and I've also got my skirt panels here, so the front and the back, and I've finished those on 3 sides as well. So I've left the bottom unfinished on everything. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to pin the pocket to the side of the skirt. And I'm only going to sew it between the notches. So here's my notch on my pocket. I'm going to put a pin there just so I know where to stop. I'm going to sew it. So I'm only going to sew about 6 inches or so of the pocket to the skirt, and that's right sides together. It's going to look something like that. I'm also going to sew the other side of the pocket to the other side seam. Same thing. So just between those notches. Fighting to see the notch there. There we go. Okay, I'm going to sew, so I'm just going to sew between here and here, and there, on both sides of this pocket. You can do both pockets at the same time, but I'm just going to do one at a time so it's easier for you to see. So I'm going to do that and be back. Wow, this is a lot of fabric to manage. I forgot to say it's a 1/2 inch seam allowance there. I'll try and remember to put it on the screen before. And I've also gone and understitched some of this seam. So if I show you from the back, you can see there's that 1/2 inch seam allowance, and then I've flipped those seam allowances towards the pocket. And then I've understitched those seam allowances towards the pocket, but not for the whole distance of that seam. So, you know, the seam starts here, and I've begun my understitching maybe 1/2 inch in from either end. Okay? Right, let's start to make this look a little bit more like a pocket. So I'm going to take, so this is my skirt, either my front or my back, it's actually, doesn't matter. I'm going to flip it over, so I'm essentially folding my pocket in half. So my pocket's in half right side together, and my skirt pieces are on top of each other right sides together. So now what I need to do is sew just the seams. So I've got my pocket here, it's kind of flapping loose, you can see there's that pocket. And I'm going to go in and I'm going to match where I finished sewing before. I'm just going to match that there. And I can see where that is. I'm going to put a pin. I want to make sure that this top edge of the pocket is out of the way. So I'm just kind of pulling that out of the way. And I'm going to sew the skirt pieces together. So the pocket is free here. And I'm just going to sew a 1/2 inch seam from the top edge of the pocket down to where I stopped or started sewing my pocket on there, making sure that I'm not catching any of this pocket edge. I'm also going to do the same for the skirt, for the rest of the skirt. So this is the side seam. I'm going to make sure everything's nice and flat. And I've got, again, pulled that bottom edge of the pocket out of the way. These are the side seams. And we're going to match those edges together. Now, if it so happens that you didn't start and stop on the front and the back of that pocket piece exactly, it's not a big deal. Just make sure everything stays flat. You can catch those closed later, but it's important that the pocket edges stay flat on top of each other. Pull that bottom bit out of the way, and then I'm going to pin down this side seam. You can see my ends don't exactly match, but that's because this is a really, really slippery rayon challis, and it was, I mean, it's close to matching, but it was a bit difficult to cut out, shall we say. That's okay, I'll fix that when I do the hem. Oh, it's close. Right. So using my 1/2 inch seam allowance, I'm going to sew from the bottom edge of that pocket seam down the side seam, keeping this pocket free. And the same on that top one, just using a 1/2 inch seam allowance, just sewing together only the side seams, leaving the pocket free. Okay, so I've sewn that side seam and I've pressed it open, so the lower side seam and that upper side seam. So now we have something that looks a little bit like a pocket, but it's flapping open. So we need to close this up. So I'm taking this lower half of the pocket, and similar to what I did with the side seam, I'm going to flip these seam allowances towards the skirt, so away from the pocket. So just like before when I folded the pocket out of the way, this time I'm actually going to fold the skirt out of the way. And I'm going to sew that part, the lower pocket. See, it doesn't match very well there. That's because of this slinky fabric. Okay, and then the same on that top edge, it's just a short one on the top. So folding the side seam out of the way. This is why we didn't understitch all the way to the very edge, so that we can get in there and stop our stitching pretty much where we started our stitching last time. So I'm going to sew this little part of the pocket, 1/2 inch seam allowance, and that lower seam of the pocket, 1/2 inch seam allowance. I just wanted to give you a bit of a look at where we are. So here's that pocket opening. Now, this is a really different kind of pocket to most inseam pockets. Most inseam pockets will go to the front or the back, and honestly, I hate it when they flap around. That can be, can be anchored into the waistband, but I thought I'd do this kind of interesting, different pocket. So it's going to go straight down. It's almost like a box pleat. I'm going to turn this work over now so we can look at it from the back side. So here's this pocket piece. It's still open at the bottom. So if you think about it like a box pleat, then I think that'll make it seem a little bit more straightforward. So I'm going to open out the bottom edge of the pocket like this, folding it at these notches here and matching that middle notch to this seam here. This is going to sew the bottom of the pocket closed. Press this seam open. I haven't done that, but I will before I sew it. Okay. So I'm matching this notch here to that seam. And it should fold right on that other notch. Okay, so I'm gonna go and press this open, or maybe I'll cheat and sew it and then press it. Anyway, I'm gonna sew across here, and then finish it with my serger or zigzag it, and I'm gonna do the same on the top edge. So this is open. Matching that notch. This is already finished, so I won't need to finish this. So again, just using a, actually with this one, we're going to use a 3/8 of an inch seam allowance for the top here, and the 3/8 of an inch seam allowance at the bottom. So I'm going to go sew these two seams and I'll be back. Okay, so we're done here. This is what it looks like from the right side. You can see we've got our pocket here, and actually it goes both ways. So when you put your hand in your pocket, it actually goes straight down. Here, if you're gathering the skirt, then you'll actually do the gathers in, and then afterwards you'll stay stitch it. So this would be gathered in here, and then I would stay stitch this pocket down with the gathers, but I'm not going to do that just to show you. I'm just going to pin it. So the waist seam will hold that. I'm going to show you from the wrong side now. Oops, haven't done the greatest job pressing. But this is what the pocket looks like from the inside. So we've got that pocket bag down here, folded edges, so it's just like a box pleat. So anyway, I hope that was interesting for you and helpful for you for this different pocket application.